Welcome to the Explainer. So, today we're doing an executive briefing on the AI Workplace Democracy Playbook, but we're not just going to read it to you. We're translating it into a strategic, hands-on operating manual, really designed for leaders who need to get this right and deliver actual results.
All right, so let's just dive right in with the big question, the one that's probably on every leader's mind right now. We're pouring enormous amounts of money and resources into AI. We've got brilliant tech, super ambitious goals, and yet, so many studies show that the actual return on that investment, well, it falls frustratingly short of the promise. Why is that? And here's the kicker. The reason for that failure is almost never in the code. It's not a tech problem. The root cause is in the culture. You see, without a really deep-seated foundation of trust between leadership and the folks on the ground, even the most mind-blowing technology is basically dead on arrival. It'll be resisted, it'll be misunderstood, and ultimately it just won't be used. Okay, so this is the crucial point, the main idea for today. We need a fundamental shift in how we think about this. We have to stop trying to manage AI adoption with Gantt charts and timelines. That's not how it works. We need to start seeing it as a logical, unbreakable sequence, a causal chain, where one step absolutely has to lead to the next. So, here's our roadmap. We are going to walk through this causal chain piece by piece, but think of it less like a checklist and more like the operating logic, the DNA of a successful transformation. All right, let's get into it. The AI causal chain. This is the core logic we're going to unpack today. You can think of it as the engine that's going to drive your AI adoption. And you got to understand, this 5-step sequence is non-negotiable. It's not a buffet where you can pick and choose what you like. Every single link depends entirely on the one before it. It starts with an ethical framework. That's what creates the trust you need for genuine participation. That participation, it's the only way you're going to build a resilient architecture. And that new architecture needs dynamic roles, not old static jobs. And the whole thing is powered by your middle managers. If you break this chain at any point, the whole thing fails. So, let's talk about that first and most important link, which is really the ignition spark for the entire chain: trust. And I really can't stress this enough. Everything starts here. Without a solid, intentionally built foundation of trust, the entire structure is wobbly from day one. First off, let's be absolutely clear what we mean by AI workplace democracy. This is not some vague, feel-good concept. Nope, it is a formal, strategic governance model, and it's designed for tangible business impact. It's about building trust so you can increase adoption speed and, critically, improve the quality of the systems you deploy.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. You've got the academic view on one side, which is all about rights and human dignity. Then you've got the practical business view, focused on risk and ROI. The most successful organizations understand there's no conflict here. They cleverly use the mechanisms of the academic view, like real participation, to achieve the goals of the practical one.
But, and this is a huge but, you have to be warned. The cost of faking this is immense. Running a bunch of performative workshops where you pretend to listen but the decisions have already been made, that's a practice sometimes called participation washing, and it is so much worse than doing nothing. It doesn't just fail to build trust, it actively destroys it. It creates the cynical culture that will poison any of your future initiatives. Okay, so that brings us to our next link, where all that trust you've built produces something hard, something tangible for the business, a resilient service architecture. Because here's what happens when you don't have a clear map of your organization's services. You know what they do, who they're for, how they connect. AI tools just get deployed randomly. And this leads to what we call pilotitis. It's like a plague of isolated pilot projects that never scale, create a mess of different tools, and just lead to widespread frustration. And here's the other side of that coin. Let's say you do design that service map, but it's done in a boardroom, top down, with no real input from the people who actually do the work every day. Well, guess what? It's a useless paper model. It'll be ignored, people will find ways to work around it, and ultimately it's going to fail. But when you combine the two, when you combine participation with architecture, you gain what the Germans have a fantastic word for: Strukturhoheit. It basically means structural sovereignty. This gives you control. It ensures that your organization's logic, your way of working, dictates how the tools get used, and it prevents you from becoming a puppet of your software vendor's business model. This brings us to our fourth link. A new, resilient architecture demands a whole new way of thinking about work. We have to make the shift from static, fragile job profiles to dynamic, adaptable roles. This is the new operating system for your talent. Think about it like this. A job profile is brittle. It's a snapshot of specific tasks and tools. The job of a horse and buggy driver becomes obsolete the second the car comes along. A role, though, is resilient. The role of a chauffeur, to transport people safely and comfortably, that adapts. It works whether the tool is a horse, a car, or a self-driving vehicle. It's tied to a purpose, not a specific tool.
And this right here is the key role in this new operating system, the service owner. This is very often the new identity for your department heads. They're no longer just managing a list of people. They're orchestrating the end-to-end flow of value for a specific service. And they're measured on its impact, things like AI's contribution to the cost per service unit.
This leads us to the fifth and final link that holds this entire chain together. With this new structure, your middle managers are no longer caught in that crossfire between strategy and execution. They become the most critical component of this new system. They become its nervous system.
So in their new capacity as service owners, these managers are literally the neural network of the organization. They're the strategic translators. They're the ones creating the psychological safety for people to experiment. They're your early warning system that senses when trust is breaking down. They are the linchpin that connects the entire system and makes it work.
So finally, let's see how this entire causal chain doesn't just happen once, but becomes a self-reinforcing flywheel for continuous adaptation and improvement.
This is the trust loop, and it's basically the entire causal chain we've been talking about, but in motion. It's a dynamic system. Trust enables real participation, which builds a solid structure. That structure delivers a measurable impact, and here's the beautiful part, that positive impact directly rebuilds and deepens the trust that started the whole process. It creates this powerful positive momentum.
And this leads to a really powerful concept called double legitimacy. See, a successful AI initiative needs to be seen as valid from two directions at once. From the top, it needs leadership legitimacy. It has to deliver on ROI and compliance. But from the front lines, it needs employee legitimacy. It has to be seen as fair, and people need to feel they had a real voice. When you get both of those, that's when you get sustainable change.
And look, this isn't just theory. Check out this case from a major hospital system that rolled out an AI co-pilot for its IT help desk. By using this exact co-design approach, they achieved an incredible 87% adoption rate in just 6 months, and they cut their ticket resolution time by 40%. Trust created structure, and that structure delivered real, measurable impact.
So, the crucial takeaway is this. Stop looking at your AI initiatives like a project plan and start seeing them as this living causal system. Your next step, right now, is to diagnose your own organization. Which link in this chain? Is it trust, participation, architecture, roles, or management? Which one is your weakest? Because strengthening that specific link, that's where your work has to begin.